Hi there, class. It's me, Sebastian, here. I'm going to go through a couple of exercises for you. I'm going to start with Access Level 1, Chapter 3. So this one here is where we're going to start working with some forms. And you should have completed your other simulations on your own, but these were the actual practice exams that I've given to you. This is going to be the one with the orange clipboard. So this is the one I did in class, so you can use this as a review. So we'll do number 3, and then I'll come back with another video that will start us with number 4. So that should cover the last 2 sections of Microsoft Access for our class, and you should do well on your test if you follow these instructions very carefully. Chapter 3, it comes up as Aspen Falls Computer Classes. That's the name of the grader assignment that we're going to work on today. Now, at this point, if you haven't done so already, you should download your files. So there are 3 files. One is in the instructions, the other is the database, and lastly, there is a logo image that you need to ensure that you grab. There are multiple steps to this grader assignment as usual. I think there's 15 steps. Nothing is overly complicated as long as you take your time and get it done. Once you've downloaded those files like I just recommended, you will see what I see on my screen, which is the actual database file. If you look very carefully at the left, it's got 2 tables and a query. So we are going to create some forms for this database, and we're going to do a whole bunch of other really cool things. Make sure you have it open. Make sure you enable content. If you are concerned, you can save as the database as a different name so that you have a copy of it. So you've got some options there. All right, so let's jump to step 2 because we've already covered the download and open. Step 2, if you read it carefully, there's something that I want to point out to you. And basically, when you read using the form wizard, create a form based on the class tables with the following fields. The key word to zero in on here is the based on. When you see that, you have to ensure that before you run your form wizard, that you actually select that appropriate table. Otherwise, what happens is you can run into issues later on, as mentioned in class. So if you were in class, you know what I'm talking about. If you weren't in class, then you need to pay particular attention to the wording of the instructions. So let's do step number 2. It says create a form based on the class sessions table. Well, if I look here, it is selected by default, which I'm lucky. There will be times where it won't be, so you need to be paying attention. So once I do that, then I'm going to go to create. And then I'm going to look here in my form section, and I notice, okay, there's form wizard. So that's what it's asking me to do. Pay attention to which type of form they want you to create as well. So I click on that, and it says in the following order, you need to put in class name. And so you can go over here and double click it. Class name, community center. Then we have start date. And then it says start time. And also, last but not least, there is the intern ID. So I make sure all of them are here to the right. It says name the form class sessions form and accept all other wizard defaults. So I'm going to click next, next. When I get here, it's going to say what title do you want to call it? What do you want to do? And it is saying class sessions form. Be careful with your spelling, be careful with your capitalization. All that will be very, very important. Once you're done that, you click finish. And at that point, you've just generated yourself a nice looking form. This form is going to allow us to enter information into the database with a nice user interface. So that's the entire point of that. You'll notice that that was worth 9 marks, and it was very straightforward. We're going to move on to step 3. It says in class sessions form, align the text in the 5 text box controls to the left and then set the control widths to 3 inches. So keep this in mind. These are your labels and these are your text boxes. So it wants us to set these up so that they are left aligned. All right, so we got to make sure that in order to do that, we have to be in the proper view. So we're going to make sure we're in the Home tab. We're going to go to View, And let's go to the layout view. That will give us the ability to move things around and select them. So now that we're in layout view, you'll notice there's orange around it, which is fine. We need to make sure we click all 5. Okay? And there's many ways that we can set this up so that it'll be to the left. We can go to the home and take a look here. And then you'll notice under text formatting, there is a line left. So we can do that. Boom, they're done. Now, the second part of this says set the control widths to 3 inches. Now, I've got a bit of a problem here. And when you guys are doing this, if your machine is set to centimeters, you're going to have a lot of issues with the actual sizing. So the reason why it's in centimeters is because my computer is set up for Canadian English. And by that, the system automatically makes it into centimeters. If you need to learn how to change it, if it is possible to changing it, then I would recommend going onto Google and having a look. Okay. But for me, I'm in a situation here where if I do 3 and I go inches and I press enter, what happens is it's going to readjust it in centimeters. So if you can see it, I typed in 3 inches, it did 7.619 centimeters. Now in real life, this won't be a problem, but when you submit these files into the MyITlab grading system, sometimes it gets angry about us converting. So if that does happen, I mean, I don't want you to stress about it, but just know that could be a possibility. And when it comes time for the test, I'll take a look at that and make sure you didn't lose any marks for something silly like that. All right. Okay, so step number 4. It says in the class sessions form, add a new record and enter the following information. The class name would be Intermediate Microsoft Word. Enter the Community Center as Central and enter the intern ID as 10. After that, it says save and close the form. So this is now step 4. So to insert a new record or add a new record, we're going to go down to the very, very bottom of the screen, and we'll notice that there is this new blank record option down here. So you're going to click on that, and what that's going to allow us to do is it's going to allow us to actually add the record. However, you have to be careful. You need to change your view so that we can actually enter the information. So you need to be in form view or it will be upset with you and not let us type. So do that, make sure you're there. All right, so I'm going to type this in here, and I got to be very, very careful because any misspelt word is going to cause us grief later on down the road, and we'll lose marks. So we got to be very, very careful. Capitals, the proper spelling of the words, all that stuff. Sometimes I get really fancy and I type quickly, which most people like to do it, but we have to be super careful. There are too many things connected in a database that if we start making errors, we will run into big trouble. So intermediate Microsoft, then we've got, look, I already messed up, almost messed up. It's intermediate Microsoft Word, and that was because it was on the second line and I didn't see it. So intermediate Microsoft Word, Community Center is Central, and then the intern ID is 10. If you're wondering why we didn't do a start date or a start time, that will come into play shortly later on in the exercise. So just leave that for now. So I've now verified. This looks good. This looks good. This is awesome. Now it says save. So I'm going to click the save button. And then it tells us to close the form. So I'm going to go and close the form. Always make sure that when it tells you to save and close, that you save and close, because you can run into some serious issues if you do not. Now, step 5, use the form tool to create a new form. Check this out, based on the Word classes query. So there's that based on again. We're focusing on that. We're making sure that we're good for it. Now, this is 9 marks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the Word classes query on the left, okay, because that's the first step. It has to be done. Then I'm going to go to create, and then it says form. It doesn't say wizard. It doesn't say anything like that. So I need to make sure I'm selecting the right one. So I click form. What happens now is that the form is going to automatically generate itself. It says change the title control text to Word classes form. And then it says save the form with the name Word classes form and then close it. All right, so the title is found up here. So this is where it wants us to change the title. So let's see here. It says Word Classes Form. So we just click up there, type the word form. And then after that, it says save the form with the name Word Classes Form, and then close it. So I click save. Then notice how I have to add the word form because that's what it wants. Word Classes Form. Click OK. And then it says save, then close. All right, perfect. So save and close. That's step 5. Step 6, use the form tool to create a main form based on, there's the word, on the interns table with a subform based on the class sessions table. Save the form with the class name intern form. So this is super easy. People freak out to see the word subform, but here's how it works. When you click on the interns table and then generate the form, then it will automatically throw in the subform for you. There's no tricks to it. It's very straightforward. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to go and click the interns table. So that's selected. Remember, that's what it's based on. Then I'm going to go to create, and then I'm going to go to form. Notice now I've got myself a form up here and the subform below. And you'll notice that it says records 1 of 5, and then at the bottom there's record 1 of 10. So we need to make sure that we understand the subform has its own toggle and navigation, and the main form has its own navigation. So keep an eye on that, because when you're going to add information, a lot of students forget and they run into trouble. Okay, so this is step 6 here, and to finish it off, it says save the form with the name class intern form. So I'm going to click save and call it class intern form. Okay. Now, once I save it, it doesn't tell me to close it. So keep an eye on that. If it doesn't say close it, then do not close it. It says step 7 for 8 marks is super easy. It says in class intern form, replace the logo using the skills and then the name of the logo. So keep this in mind. You should have downloaded this image file to your computer, and you know that you should be downloading each file individually. We've had that conversation in class. Do not download a zip file. It will cause nothing but grief. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over here where it says interns up here, and you'll notice this little Access Database looking icon. When we click on that, we can then go to the Design tab at the very, very top, and what you'll see now is that there is a logo option to the right. So click on this, then Design, and then Logo. Once you click on the logo, then it will ask us where do we want to go to. So I saved mine in the D drive. Let me see here, SD Consulting, Access Videos, and my Access 3 files. Now, obviously, you'll have to find yours, and when you do, then it'll make sense. But that's what the logo needs to look like. So we're going to do City Hall. I'm going to click OK. And voila. There we go. I've got myself a beautiful, nice logo here, City Hall. And I'll just warn you now that when we get to Access 4, it's going to look the same. It's the same logo, different exercise, but that's what it is. Okay, so that's step 7, 8 marks, fantastic. Step 8, the class or in the class intern form, apply a phone number input mask to the phone text box control that uses a number sign as a placeholder, and then include the symbols in the mask. So what we need to do here is we need to make sure we're still in the same form. We're going to go into the phone number field. Okay, so what happens is when you click this and make it active, if you have your property sheet visible, you'll be able to go to the data tab here, and you'll notice there's an option for input mask. So we're going to go over to the input mask, and there's 3 little dots which are going to guide us through the process. So we click on it, and this is a phone number that we are doing. So that's selected. That's fantastic. We click next. Here it gets to the point where it says, okay, we're doing an input mask. What's the placeholder that we need to do? So looking at our sheet, our instructions, it says it shouldn't be this. It should be a hashtag or number sign, however you choose. to call it. So there you go. And then you click next. The last part of this, it says include symbols in the mask. By default, it says input without. So no, we need to include the symbols in the mask like this. Then we click next, and then we click finish. Nothing too complicated. There's the new input mask style. Everything looks okay. So that's what it wants us to do. It looks fantastic. All right, so that's step 8. That was also worth 8 marks, super easy. Moving along to step 9, it says in the same form, it says add a new column to the right of the table. Move the last name text box control to the first empty cell to the right of the first name text box. Change the first name label to text to first space slash space last name. And then delete the row with the unused last name. So what happens here in class, if you were in class, you would have known that there was a little bit of language issue here. We weren't quite sure exactly what they were referring to, but we sorted it out. Now, if you didn't make it to the class where this was covered, then you'll want to pay close attention to what exactly we are doing. So what it's really asking you, if I have to break this down, it's basically asking you to add a column to the right here, because we're going to merge our first names and last names together. So that's our goal. And then we're going to clean it up a little bit. So how do we do that? Well, let's take a look. So we've got our database selected here, for example. Then we can go to arrange. And if you take a look at the arrange here, you'll notice there's an option to add a column to the right. Now, if I read down here, it says add a new column to the right. Perfect. So I click it. What happens now is you're going to get these little dotted boxes or cells, as you want to call them, all the way down, which is perfect. From there, it says move the last name text box. So this is the last name text box here. It says move it from the right or to the empty cell to the right. So what we're doing here is we're going to take this last name and we're going to just drag it over here. When we drag it over here now, it leaves a void, which we're going to deal with in a second. Okay? So it says we moved it. That's perfect. It says change the first name label text to first and last. So we're going to go over here and we're going to double click inside and we're going to go space, first name, then last name. And we got to make sure that our spelling is correct, because if it's not, it's going to be all busted up. So I'm going to fix that. First name, last name. So now that's corrected. It says delete the row with the unused last name label. So basically, this row here, I need to delete it. Okay, so that's what we got to do. So what we can do at this point is we can right click and there's a delete row option. So on the last name field or label, we go right click and then delete row. Perfect. So now everything is where it should be and it's nice and clean. So that is step 9. That was 8 marks. Nothing complicated, just pay attention to detail. Step 10, in the class intern form, set the width of the table's first column to 1.5 inch. And the width of the second and third columns to 2.6 inch. In the row with the subform, merge all cells into one cell and then save the form. Okay, so again, there's a lot going on with step 10, but it's not overly complicated. So first things first, the first column, which they want us to adjust, is the column here to the left. So this is with our labels. We're going to go to format and we are going to change the width to 1.5 inches. Again, I'm in centimeters, so it's a little bit weird, but it's going to convert. So 1.5 inches. Press enter. And then it says to change the width of the second and third columns to 2.6 inches. So I click on the second column and I'm going to go to width. And this is going to be 2.6 inches. And the third column, I'm going to do the same. So I'm going to go to width, and I'm going to go to 2.6 inches and press enter. All right. So Again, what I'm noticing on the left-hand side, the 1.5 inches, it's cutting off the first name, last name a bit, which this is going to be an issue when we're dealing with centimeters. You should not have this issue if your system is set up for inches. It should all be visible and it should be perfectly clear. Unfortunately, if I were to upload this, I have a feeling the MyITlab is going to give a hard time. But I know in real life, I can make modifications. I can make adjustments. I'm not living my life by the MyITlab grader system. All right, so just keep that in mind. I want to tell you that one more time because I don't want people to freak out. Now at the bottom, what it's saying, the last part of step 10 is saying that we need to take this subform and the column beside it. So we're going to hold control, click the column beside it, because what it wants us to do is merge these cells to make that subform larger. So now that they're selected, I can go up here to the arrange, and you'll notice there's a merge option. Now we're only doing this for our actual subform. So I'm going to click merge, and away we go. You'll notice that now the subform is as wide as our two fields above, which is, it's pleasing and it's better for the eye. So that's what we need to do. Once we're done this, it says save the form. So I'm going to save the form. Perfect. All right, so step 11. In the same form, switch to the form view. So we're going to go to home view, make sure we're in form view. And what we need to do now is we need to navigate to the last record for the class. All right, so let's take a look here. So we're not going to the subform. We need to go to the last record at the bottom. So click last record, and it takes us to the very last record. It says that we need to go into the subform for Connie. This is Connie, see Connie Colasordo. And what we need to do is we need to add a start date, as I had mentioned earlier in the exercise. So start date and a start time based on what the information was given to us on the instructions. So the start date should be 5/14 and 2014. Tab over, and it says start time is 2 p.m. Perfect. Watch your capitals. So 2 p.m. and then it says save and close our form. So we go save and close. Perfect. All right, so that was step 11. Step 12, it says create a navigation form with vertical tabs, left layout, format, add button with intense effect. So there's quite a bit going on here. This is all formatting information, which is fine. It's not a big deal. So we're going to go here, we're going to go create our forms. If you notice here, there's a navigation form. Now, which one does it want us to do? We make sure we read carefully. It says vertical tabs, left layout. So vertical tabs, left layout. Perfect. Once you read that and you're clear, you click it. Perfect. Now, it says to format this add new button so that it will have the intense effect, green accent 1 quick style. So people typically freak out a little bit here. They're not quite sure what to do. They just start going to home tab and all this other crazy stuff. But we're not going to do that. We're going to go to format, and we're going to go to this quick styles option here. That's the key word in this equation here, in this question 12. So we need to go to the quick style. So we click on it, and it says to choose green accent 1, which is the second column, row 6. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let me double check it. I hold my mouse over. It says intense effect, green accent 1, and I'm going to select it. Boom. Not a whole lot has changed with the button, but you'll notice there's a little bit of shading behind it. The color has changed a bit and things like that. So right off the bat, for 9 marks, that's a pretty good and easy one. The hardest part is just finding where to go. All right, so step 13. It says in the navigation form, add buttons for these forms in the following order. So class sessions form, class intern form, and then class the word classes form. So what we want to do is we're going to go in order. it says class sessions form. Drag it, and then it says class interns form. Drag it, and then the last one is, in the following order, it says word classes form. So make sure when it tells you to do it in a specific order that you do it. That there is 6 marks because it's pretty straightforward. Okay. Step 14. This one is a bit tricky because it's like the English doesn't make a lot of sense if you're not quite sure what's going on. But basically, it wants us to set the form's modal property so that the navigation pane closes whenever the form is open. So we got to save the form with the name navigation form and then close that form. So with the form that we're in, we need to get to our properties and we need to make sure that we can set the form properties to yes, the modal properties to yes. So I click on the properties sheet, and we need to make sure, if you take a look over here, it's saying navigation button, but that's not what we want to adjust. We want to adjust the navigation form, the navigation itself. Okay, so we're going to take a look here, and we're going to see if there's anything that matches what it's asking. So it says set the form's modal property so that the navigation pane closes whenever the form is open. So we're going to go to form. Let's take a look if it's that and see if when we go to all, if modal is there. Okay, because it's the form we're talking about. So we go to form, modal is there, we select yes. Perfect. So that's what that question's asking you to do. Again, it wouldn't make a lot of sense if someone didn't show you, so this is why I'm doing this for you. It says save the form with the name navigation form. So when I go to the save button, you'll notice that by default, it gives you the navigation form name, which is fantastic. So I click OK. And at that point, it's generated as a form. And then it says to close the form. Excellent. So that concludes the exercise for Chapter 3 Access. The other 2 practice tests are very similar. They're going to have very similar outcomes to what you've done here or what you've seen here. So please make sure you study. We have our test, and I want to make sure that you guys do really, really well. Okay? Any questions, you can always email me as usual. Have a great day. Take care.